whatever was the idea was basically that, no, you should keep doing we will give you the ability to do software, but we still want the video to be released under software sculptors. So we were kind of one of their niche labels that did software and exact. In fact, we had licenses to do a lot more from bigger companies. I dealt with GT Interactive. I don't know if they're still around now, but GT Interactive did Doom. I said, listen, I want to do this stuff, but I said, I want to program and what? They said, hey, we happen to have the license to these DC. We have the license to the DC universe. Okay, let's make a screensaver for DC. I said, just like After Dark. I don't know, about 2 years of meetings with DC, and we actually made animation. We did everything. It never finished. But the thing was that we were working with DC on a screensaver that would have like some of their big characters that was going to be like that kind of thing. We did eventually work with Universal, and I did Herc and Xena. And also I had the rights, or about to get the rights. I actually went to the studio of Babylon 5. Back then, they came to America. We met with them, and he said, we could get you the uncensored masters, because that was a big thing. No one could get that stuff. He goes, we could send it to you. We have it in the studio. The publisher doesn't. But we actually have the uncensored parts. So the thing was, they sent it to us like via mail, very discreet kind of thing. And yeah, we got the uncensored versions of those 3 shows. They did very well. In fact, over time, they did amazing. I remember the first time I saw it, even in my mind, I was just like, why did he include those couple scenes? And we thought it was just so amazing that we said to ourselves, why don't we just clip the couple scenes out? And that's what we did. But, that was pretty amazing. In fact, it was, like I said, the same studio that did those, Orchid Emma, Advanced Tina, and whatever. But they then was being represented by the Green Bunny guys, but because that's when Beam left and the Green Bunny guys came in. I forget their official name. They have another name they still use. They changed the name over time. Bandai. They're part of Bandai, but it's like, we're not part of Bandai because it's adult. Umetsu made it. But the thing about Umet, if you ever watched Cool Devices, there's one story in the Cool Devices that Sean did. It's called Yellow something.
Yellow Star.
Yellow Star. That's Kite.
Right.
That was the start of it. And what happened was he then took the story and did whatever. But if you know Umetsu, he's really more of a sci-fi guy. But the whole thing was he also did this stuff, so they had him do Kite. And it was pretty amazing.
Did you tell them what you were doing with it, or?
Yeah, we kind of told them. And the thing about Japan, they're pretty much open to, at that time at least, they were open to anything. Because what we told them is, if we could cut these couple scenes, we're going to get into a lot more places, make a lot more money. You'll be happier. Everybody's going to be pretty much happier. But we said, we'll do it that way. And I said, what we'll do is that it wasn't the plan, but I said later we'll start to release other versions. And we can include, once the sales died off on that, we can include some more and more. Frank was there. We took him from CBM also. He tried to start it up. The problem was we were spread too thin. Like, meaning that we did, anime. We did the adult, the hentai. We did horror. So what happened was we were spread so thin that we didn't focus enough on the manga. And the other thing too is that, here's the thing about Japan. They really consider the manga much more important than the video. Most of the videos come out later. So the manga is actually like really by the author, and they control it. A lot of time the author gives up the rights to do the videos and all that stuff. And they just kind of checklist it. They don't really care as much. So it's much harder. You really have to be involved, and you have to do a lot more to get the big shows, to get the manga. And we didn't have it. I mean, I'll be honest, we just didn't have it. So we thought the easiest thing to do would be the yaoi, because nobody was doing the yaoi manga. So we did that, and some of them did pretty well. I just looked at it as like the animation. I thought it was pretty cool. The other thing too is I went to cons. If you've been to an anime con, or you've been whatever, if there's one thing about them, it's very open. They're very, I would use the word accepting, and they don't really like have hang-ups about things. People were telling me that this stuff would do well. I said, let's keep going with it. And first one was Earthian and fake. We found it pretty good. People thought the manga would do pretty well. We did do the yaoi manga, and that did pretty well. But it wasn't, manga as a category just wasn't good category. For other stuff, the videos itself, we said, let's give it a shot. Let's see what it does. And it did pretty well. It didn't do as well as people think, but it did pretty well. Yeah, what happened was we had one guy who left CPM with Ed Wang. He loved when we had this one little place that did our subs. But they had an avid system there. When he was there doing the whatever, he would say, could you do this? Could you do that? And they were doing it. He would make up crazy trailers. He remember like Ogenki Clinic, he would have the little penises running all over the screen. And he made all these really elaborate things with them. And it went really well. He did those, and those went well. We had one bad story. We did the trailer for Samurai Armageddon, which was kind of bloody and Godzilla was getting really big. Like there was the American version of Godzilla, right? The one eventually everyone hated, but initially it was going to be the big thing, and it was the new Godzilla. We wanted to cash in on it, so it was kind of because everyone, Scimitar, all these guys were coming out with all the old Godzillas, and they were getting like gazillion of them into places. So Yoko found Gappa. They only did one Rubber Monster movie. It was Gappa. So she got it because she had a friend there. Sam says, okay, I'm going to throw the trailers. And he threw the Samurai Armageddon trailer on one of the Gappa tapes, which was a sub-only tape. He thought only the fans would buy a sub-only. A grandparent at Tower buys the tape, gives it to his grandson. The grandson sees all this blood and whatever. Supposedly, I get a call from a lawyer that they're suing us over that thing, and they actually did in California. We had to go through a free speech thing that the kid watched it, and I was forever harmed from watching this trailer. So
I'm sure he's fine.
He's fine now. In the early days, back to CPM, Mike would say why do we have this name, this Japanese name? And he said, I can't sell it. He goes, nobody knows what that is. And I said, what do you need, or whatever it was? He says, just make it sounds sexy or something. So Sam, he came up with those names. Like he came up with Bondage Queen Kate, and he came up with, Sexorcist, and and then eventually the names just kept getting more and more elaborate. It was
Mother Knows Breast,
whatever, Elfin Laid, and, we would make puns of other animes, and Oh My Sex Goddess. We would just keep throwing the word sex and this in front of anything.
I remember I was either at CPM or not long after CPM, and we had an OVA that was terrible, but it sold very well, called Angel Sanctuary. And then not a year later, you had Anal Sanctuary.
We named it Anal Sanctuary because, it would sell. You had to just, market it. And yes, he was right, because then the other thing that was really good about it, when you have this Japanese name, some kid may see it and think, oh, it's okay to watch, even though it has absolutely not for children and whatever on it. But if you put something like, Oh My Sex Goddess or Anal Sanctuary, if he showed it to the parent would be like, you're a moron. Why did you buy this? So I like that part of having that name too.